Well. So it seems like Mr. Oleksandr Usyk decided to vacate all of his belts. Every single one! But you know what? That's fine. You know why? Because after 15 years, 15 years! Vacatethe has been boxing in the pros. And as for Anthony Joshua and Usyk, they started boxing since 2013 in the pros. Zhou Zhang in 2014, which he should have came in a lot sooner, just like after his 2008 Olympic Games, which he should have, instead of waiting 4 years for another waste of Olympic Games, and how horrible he lost against Joshua. It's like he should have done something like Deontay Wilder did. Like Deontay scored bronze and then turned pro in 2008, the same year he won the bronze medal in the Beijing Olympic Games. And again, even though, here's the thing. There's a reason why Anthony Joshua and, of course, Usyk is because the reason those guys got the recognition, they got the unified champs, is because they were getting the opportunities because of their amateur career. Their entirety of an Olympian became their successor to the pros. Vacatethe, again, I'm still trying to understand the history of Vacatethe. It says that he became a kickboxer before he became a boxer, from transitioning to one thing or another, but there's not a lot of record about that. And there's no information on BoxRec about him having an amateur boxing career like Fabio Wardley, so that's pretty funny to think of, it's pretty funny that Fabio Wardley and Vacatethe, like, there's no information of them having an amateur boxing career, but again, they became champion, but again, when you look at it from that perspective, it doesn't mean that the way they won the titles, again, it makes you wonder as them being a paper champion. Now, again, I already made a couple videos about Vacatethe. I did talk about him, talking about his career, what his boxing run was, how I called him the most unluckiest boxer in the pros until today. Like yesterday, on June the 27th, Vacatethe has been promoted to WBC champion. And I heard this from Rummy's Corner, because when Rummy's Corner uploaded a video yesterday about how Rummy's Corner made a video and he titled it so weirdly that I have to type in the video again. Okay, Rummy's Corner. What did you say? Yeah, is Usyk ducking Caballel like Bo ducked Lewis? Question mark. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here because the information Rummy's Corner pointed out there were some sort of basis to the information he's talking about. I love the examples he talked about when Tyson Fury came back from his long hiatus after his victory against Klitschko. And mostly talk about the lineal champions that were like talking about Shannon Briggs, who was a lineal champion, which was great. He pointed him out. And he even talked about how Lennox Lewis took the WBC belt out of the trash can, and to this day they still count that as one of the most horrible ways to become champion. But again, when you look at it from that perspective, and I will say this though, there was one person in the comments that did actually pointed out a good point here. A guy named Kiwi4357 pointed out here, quote, Bo was 25 years old and in the absolute prime of his career when he vacated the belt. Plus, him and Lewis had history going back to the amateurs. True. They did have their final gold medal in the 88 Olympic Games, the same night where Roy Jones lost his gold medal. Yeah, South Korea. What you gonna do? It's not remotely the same as a man nearly 40, Usyk, he's 39, who has enough self-awareness to realize he's not the same fighter he was even 2 years ago. So he's doing what we would all expect him to do and relinquish the belts to free up the division for a new generation. End quote. And don't get me wrong, the guy has a good point. And it's like, yeah, it's like Riddick Bowe is at his prime and Usyk is not at his prime anymore. And even though he didn't have a lot of background into the amateurs as much when he vacated all the belts, like, I don't think there was enough rivalries in boxing. Like, he did lose against the guy that Dmitry Bivol defeated last year ago by regaining the undisputed belts, Artur Beterbiev. That was one fight, and there was another fight around Clement Russo, I think it was the fighter that defeated Usyk in the other Olympic Games in 28 or something, or some other division in the amateurs. But again, it is crazy. But again, I really can't point that out to a perspective because at the end of the day, I'm not going to throw in all of this bad stuff and call this horrible. It's not worth it. Still, yeah. By the way, before I continue with this podcast, I just want to point this out. I'm going to do this, make this a 30-minute podcast, make this short. I recorded 11 episodes this month, and the quality is not getting better for me. This is the 12th one this month. So I'm thinking about doing 10 episodes every month, which is interesting. And I am coming up with trying to create my new art styles. I'm thinking of doing... I'm coming out with my new art style. I've been practicing coloring and making designs without using AI. Which is actually something I've been practicing for over 5 or 7 months, which has been getting interesting. And I've been trying to turn, I've been thinking of making thumbnails for interesting content as similar, just like how YouTuber, the Deadlock Podcast, and their DP Wrestling, formerly known for Johnny Blood and his YouTube channel, New Legacy Inc., how their thumbnails and their intro art formats are similar. So I want to do mine in an anime type way, but also in a serious type way for art styles like them. So keep that in mind. And the reason I'm doing this half an hour episode is there's not a lot of stuff to talk about. I just want to get to this whole vacant thing and that's it. Which, to be honest, it's better to take a break. So with that being said, and even though we're 8.5 minutes into this, so what's my last 22 minutes of talking about here? Okay, well, here's my thing. So here's the thing. Vacatethe is WBC champion. He's the first German boxer to become champion since Max Schmeling in 1930. And I wrote this into my Observer 2 days ago as an observer. No, I did it yesterday ago. Saturday. And the thing is, Max Schmeling was the first since 1930 to become the first German boxer as heavyweight champion. Now, of course, Manuel Mahmoud Achar would do that in 2017, which was the WBA regular belt, which some people don't think of it as a major, even though me and Counterpunch Boxing, we both believe it should be legit. And we even pointed out Daniel Dubois is a 3-time heavyweight champion. So why not? So it's not that tough to explain. But again, and of course, Achar did become WBA from the reinstatement in 2023, thanks to the whole Don King thing. And then Dubois lost against Usyk in their first match in 2023. And days later, Achar got the belt back, lost against Kubrat Poev, first ever male boxer to become Bulgarian champion. Still legit. And then a year later in December, several months ago, Murat became champion against him. And also, Murat Gassiev is still promoted as a regular champion, which that might not be for long as a Russian still. Daniel Dubois still WBO, and Usyk is still the Ring Magazine and lineal champion, so he's not out of that format yet, to be honest. Oh, yeah. As for the IBF belt, people believe that Frank Sanchez should deserve the opportunity because he is the number one ranked winner, and he did defeat Richard Torres cleanly. So Frank Sanchez should deserve to become the first ever Cuban boxer champion, which I would almost say it's a good idea. But we're just going to have to wait because let me see my rankings here. The box live rankings are not posted on anything yet. But Frank Sanchez is the number one mandatory for the IBF. He is now a mandatory thanks to that win with Torres last month ago. So, and again, Torres would have been the first white American as a white hope for a very long time. And now his career is dead because of that fight last month ago. So yeah, WBA super heavyweight and the IBF are still vacant. But again, Moses Atama is ranked number one in the WBA. And even though Jarrell Miller is right on his tail at number 2, so the Americans are not out of it yet. They're not out. We can still have an American boxer to become champion, and that could still bring in some historical moments for boxing for the heavyweights. But who knows? But I guess my point is, I think when we're looking at from a perspective side of boxing, you have to understand one thing. Usyk, the thing is, Usyk might have dumped all of the belts out of the trash can, depending on the formalities going on here. Like, let's look up the information of all of the titles in the heavyweight that retired. So, okay, so June the 26th, 2026, Usyk's WBA belt got vacant. Man, wow, Usyk almost made it 5 years. Man, almost 5 years. Crazy. The WBC belt. Okay, yep, vacated the belt. Yep, got promoted from interim. Yep, that's true. Okay. The IBF belt still says vacant. Usyk vacated the title on the 26th. Yep, okay. So June the 26th was the day, which makes sense. And Dubois still champion. Okay, so all in all, nothing has changed. So technically, all I can say is about this entirety is I really don't know what's gonna happen. Like, now I'm gonna have to find information on understanding what's gonna happen. Like, because with Murat Gassiev, here's the thing that I find funny. So Murat Gassiev is on June the 4th. Also on May the 27th, Murat Gassiev wants to defend his WBA belt on July the 11th against gold medalist Tony Yoka, who Tony Yoka failed hard in the pro. He lost 3 straight fights in over a full years of length in his career, took on some nobodies, and then finally won some fights against some fighters that we thought he was going to lose against, and now he's back in the rankings. Got lucky getting ducked away by Lawrence Okali thanks to the guy's drug test. So, yeah, this might be an opportunity here, and it's pretty obvious. Like, if this fight takes place in a couple weeks in Russia, Tony Yoka might get the fight, and he might even have an opportunity. Like, this might be an opportunity for a WBA heavyweight championship belt because Tony Yoka could be the first ever Frenchman born from France to become a heavyweight champion if they're going to promote their WBA belt to a super WBA belt. Again, it is hard to understand, but yeah, they're pointing out stuff here. Like, we're having focuses, like Murat wants to take on Michael Hunter, aiming with Tony Yoka. And he did say, like, 3 or so weeks ago on June the 4th by Boxing Scene, he stated he was aiming for the undisputed. And now his formal rival opponent, Usyk, who he did fought in the tournament for the Muhammad Ali Trophy in 2018, which he lost by utter squashness in 12 rounds of getting squashed. I don't even think he won a single round in that fight. Like, all I can say is Murat Gassiev now has the opportunity to do it. And by the way, let me point one thing out here. Even though it took 96 years, if you don't count Mahmoud Achar, Max Schmeling, heavyweight champion, 1930. Now we go 96 years in the future. Ajit Kabayel is now heavyweight champion in Germany. Like, man, this is crazy. Oh, man, I can't even control myself. Like, I can't even control my breathing because my heart's still pumping, because I really didn't think that Ajit Kabayel had the chance in his whole dang life for how unlucky he was. Yes, he is a paper champion because his title is being what was that word again? Reinfractured or something. His title has been, because like, he was a paper champion because he was reinstated or something, because he never won the belt from Usyk or anything else. So all I can say is it just seems like this is the opportunity for everyone to see here. Like, but this is the thing I find interesting. Max Schmeling, 1930, from Germany, becomes heavyweight champion. And of course, a couple years later, he lost it against his opponent he defeated, Jack Sharkey, who is one of a handful of heavyweights born in the New England, whether it's New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, handful of heavyweights that became world champion. Oh my gosh. And the craziest thing about this, in 1930, the FIFA World Cup debuted in 1930. I think it debuted in Argentina or Uruguay, because Uruguay became the first country to win the inaugural FIFA World Cup in 1930. And there were just a handful of countries, and USA was one of them. And the tournament bracket was just semifinals and finals. USA made it. They lost in the semis, but they did win bronze, and that's the only time they would ever make it to the semis. 96 years later, the USA are now in the round of 32, and if they lose against Bosnia in the round of 32, I'm like, what is going on here? Because I look at the FIFA bracket here, and I want to look at the bracket. Like, here's the thing about the knockout stage bracket going on. There's 64 countries. Like, for crying out loud, 64 countries are competing. Like, dude, well, not 46. No, 48 teams. I meant to say 48 teams, not 64. I meant, well, you see, 4 years ago, 32 countries were competing in 2022. Now they have 48 countries. Like, that's ridiculous. But here's the thing. So the thing is, okay, so here's the information. So, of course, I did talk about this in my Observer. Mexico had a 3-0 record. They won their group and got in from Group A. They handled South America. They got through South Korea and Sketches Republic. Canada got a draw with Bosnia, dominated Ecuador, but lost against Switzerland. Not by domination, but they did score a goal too late in their run. Brazil, Morocco, well, they had their moments. And also, Bosnia barely made through. Interesting. So the USA did dominate Paraguay and Australia, but they decided to give Turkey the win, which to this day, I don't know why I think the USA lost against Turkey on purpose in that match 3 days ago, even though they had a lot of penalties in that game, which is how Turkey scored their third goal in over, it was like the 8+ minute mark of a 90 minute. It was 90 minutes, and they had 8 extra minutes for penalties. Jeez. Don't get me wrong, it was an entertaining game, but I still don't like soccer. I'm going to talk about why soccer is my least favorite sport one day, and I might talk about it soon. But all we know is America lost, but I assume they did that on purpose, just to pretend to the fans that they are not good. Germany dominated, but maybe not for long. And Japan, well, they scored draws and got through competition. And with only Mexico, yeah, Mexico, France got 3-0 record, Argentina got 3-0 record, Mexico 3-0 record. And yes, and as of today, Canada barely won against South America to make it to the round of 16 as we're talking about this. So congrats on that. Is there any other match on the 28th? No, on the 29th. June the 29th, Paraguay takes on Germany. I hope Paraguay defeats them because I don't want Germany to win. Oh boy, have France take on Sweden, which they're gonna perform against. Oh man, Germany versus France on July the 4th. Man, if they ever fight that in the round of 16, wow. We also have Morocco and Netherlands. One of them are going to take on Canada. Man, Portugal. Okay, here's the thing. If USA does not defeat Bosnia, the thing is, it's July the 1st. July the 1st, they're taking on Bosnia. They have to win. They're 3 days. Like, it's July the 1st when they fight in this match. 3 days later, we're going to celebrate the USA for their 250th birthday. And then 2 days later in Seattle, United States are going to take on against Belgium and Senegal. Just hope that's the case. And I don't know if that's going to happen. Like, I can see the USA winning this match, and then maybe if Senegal... no, I think Senegal is a better team than Belgium. And that both teams might be better than the USA. But if the USA does manage to handle out a win here, that would be surprising to see them make it to the quarterfinals. And maybe the USA might have to take on one of the 4 countries, whether it's Austria, Spain, Croatia, or Portugal. And Croatia has been doing really awesome in 2018 and 2022 in both years. And even though they failed, they still managed to make it to the semifinals. So that would be a great match in the quarterfinals to see USA and Croatia win, or even the 2010 World Cup winners, Spain. So there's opportunities here. We also have Brazil taking on Japan tomorrow in Houston, and I hope Japan wins against Brazil. Crazy. Mexico is taking on Ecuador on the 30th in Mexico City. England versus DR Congo. Oh yeah, Democratic Republic. Oh boy, that's going to be an interesting match. Yeah, Argentina. We have Australia from the land down under taking on Egypt. Yeah, there's still some countries from South America, South Africa, and some from Asia, and all from North America are in this bracket, but there's still some handful of these other players like Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and again, Switzerland, Germany, Belgium, Spain, Netherlands, like France, Sweden. Dude, there's so many Europe and South American countries that they can easily win out everything here. But the odds of one of these African countries, or maybe Asian, maybe if Japan squeaks some unbelievableness, they'll defeat Brazil, and then they'll get maybe a lucky break on Ivory Coast or Norway on the 5th, which I hope that's the truth. And then they'll take on maybe Mexico might win their 2 matches in the quarterfinals, and they might defeat Japan. Like, any of these things could happen, or maybe it's going to be Brazil or Norway, and that's it. And then Ecuador defeats Mexico, or again, there's so much. Or what about this other country titled Cape Verde? Cape Verde is taking on Argentina on the 3rd of July in the Miami Gardens. And what are the odds of Cape Verde doing anything to Argentina? And for crying out loud, Lionel Messi is still with the team right now, and he is a murderer. Heck, even France still has their star man. Unbelievable. Oh no, this is not going to be good, man. Oh boy. Oh no, this is not. This is not good. Oh, I was worried about this one going to happen. Oh, oh, they still have their other man. Oh boy, we still have it. I can't even talk straight, man. As of right now, like France still has their other star player of captain uh, Kylian Mbappe. Like, man, he's still part of the team. Unbelievable. And what about Germany? Do they still have? Wait, do they still have their German player? Wait, Captain Joshua Kimmich. Oh no, Joshua Kimmich. Oh no. Dude, these players are better than anything else. Oh no, man. This is. Even though this German captain of theirs hasn't done much in the World Cup as much, but oh boy. Yeah, I really don't know what to say about this. It just seems like this whole tournament's going downhill. And I'm gonna talk about why I hate soccer, but man, crazy. Wow, it's been 26 minutes, almost 27 minutes. You know what? I'm gonna talk for 10 more minutes to be on the 40-minute mark here because I think 40 minutes is better than 30. I just keep thinking of it as a documentary. You know, I'm gonna give this episode an extra 10 minutes because I do have a couple other things to talk about. All I can say is it's I don't know. Here's the thing. Lionel Messi has scored 6 goals. Kylian from France has 4 goals. And another Frenchman of his named Wilsmain is also in 4 goals. And a Brazilian fighter named Junior uh, Vinicius has 4 goals. The United States, none of them scored 3 goals. And only a guy named Florian Fulwarian Balogun, who is not an American, I think. He was born in Brooklyn, New York as a okay, so he does he was part of the club of Monaco. Monaco. Huh. Oh, okay, so he's part of another country out to the side of Europe. Okay, so that's something of a captain. He's 24 years old. Again, I don't know. I really don't know. It seems like there's just so much problems here. I just think there's going to be a lot of problems. Yeah, the thing is, not a lot of action has been going on for a lot, but all I could say is it's going to be a doozy. Because on the 29th, Japan and Brazil, Germany, Paraguay, Netherlands, and Morocco. Oh boy, this is just. It would be interesting to see Morocco defeat Netherlands, and again, maybe Paraguay could defeat Germany and Japan defeat Brazil, but I just don't see Netherlands, Germany, and Brazil losing. They just might win these matches easily, and that just might upset me because it might be so hard for America to make it to the quarterfinals. And plus, maybe America could squeak out something here, but again, I'm just rambling about what might happen in the future. And when these matches do happen, all of that rambling I just did is down the drain. What a waste of time. So All I can say is, for whatever is going to come out of this, it better be good, and we just hope no one gets hurt. Like, that's my final thought. Like, all I can say is, when the round of 32 is over, because again, the round of 32 is going to end on July the 3rd. The top 16 are going to be ranked until the first match is on July the 4th. Again, I'm really shocked that Canada is in the round of 16. And I would be shocked if Canada even won their other match next week and then they're in the round of 8. And just imagine how wild that moment would be if they make it to the round of 8, they make it to the quarterfinals, and then they just take on any team from the semifinals. And imagine that. But imagine what would have happened if, let's just say this, Canada okay, so Canada defeats Morocco, for instance. They make it to the quarterfinals, and they're going to take on the winner of France or Germany, which might be one of those countries that are in the round of 16 or both, and they're in the quarterfinals. Can you imagine if Canada squeaked out an unbelievable victory against those two dangerous countries? And then they make it to the semifinals. And then you might have, let's just say, Croatia defeated Portugal and Spain defeated Austria. Croatia gets against Spain in the round of 16. And even though, assume United States does win a victory against Belgium, because I think Senegal is a better country than Belgium. So if Senegal wins, they might defeat the USA. But again, Belgium is still a good country, better than USA. So who knows? But USA might come out of it. They might take on Croatia for the quarterfinals, and maybe Croatia defeats the USA in the quarterfinals. And then they'll take on Canada in the semis, and then they'll make it to the finals. And maybe Brazil might dominate on with Japan, defeats on Norway, Mexico wins Ecuador. They'll defeat England because Mexican are better than England. Who knows? Brazil defeats Mexico in the quarterfinals. Again, Argentina gets their victories from Australia. Everything else, Switzerland, Colombia, it doesn't matter. They're in the quarters. So Argentina gets their big deal. Maybe Brazil, Argentina will compete in the semifinals, win, and, well, unfortunately, maybe one of those countries will take on Croatia in the finals if Croatia defeats Canada in the semis, and Canada is going to finish in 4th against one of the teams with Argentina, Brazil. I'm just making all of this prediction up. I'm sorry for rambling too much, but I'm looking at this bracket on Wikipedia, and I'm just trying to see what countries, like, I'm looking at every single opportunity here, but I just don't see that happening. All I see is that if North America, if one of the North Americans or maybe the African countries or something along the lines makes it to the semifinals, they're not going to win. And if they do make it to the finals, bravo, bravo. What a great moment in history. And if they win the finals, geez Louise, what are we doing here after 96 years since the FIFA World Cup? What was Germany doing for 96 years after Max Schmeling became champion? What took so long to become champion? Well, it didn't take long. They were still contenders back in the old days, and they just couldn't become champion. They had it, and they got robbed. Well, thank God Vacatethe didn't get robbed, and now he's champion for 96 years. I'm just trying to make this a historical moment, like, why did it take Germany 96 years for Vacatethe to be the first German boxer to become heavyweight champion since Max Schmeling in 1930, which is 96 years, and why it took 96 years for the USA to get a top 3 finish or make it to the semifinals since the inaugural season in 1930, and see one of the North Americans to do the same thing 96 years. I just want to see that stuff happen, because these things could happen. It could. Like, why would it even be crazy when Dan Weldon won the Indianapolis 500 when a guy named JR hits the wall coming out of turn 4, passing out a slow car, and Dan wins the race? that same night in the Charlotte race, Dale Jr. runs out of gas coming out to the final corner, and Kevin Harvick passes him. You know what's crazy? Both of those drivers that lost on the final turn, the final lap, were sponsored by the U.S. Coast Guard that same day. You can't come up with this stuff. So there has to be some historical stuff might happen. And if it doesn't, what is the point of me talking about this? I just don't know what will happen. But again, if South America and Europe are better countries, we know that. But again, if all we see that are going to make it to the semifinals, if the only semifinals of all semifinals are going to be the countries of Europe and South America, this whole FIFA World Cup for 2026 has to be the worst FIFA World Cup of all time. And that's not the reason why I hate soccer. That's not. I'm going to get to the real main reason why I hate soccer. This is only 5% of the reason why I hate soccer here. Just 5% of it. The other 95%, I'll save it for another time. But you got to understand, man, there has to be some historical moments here. It has to. It's like 15 years ago, Dale Earnhardt and JR failed on the final turn to win a Charlotte 600 and an Indianapolis 500. And two famous champions of Kevin Harvick and the late Dan Weldon would win the race coming out of the final turn, the final lap, beating the drivers that were both sponsored by the same sponsors in the same exact day of the races. You can't come up with that stuff. God might be working in mysterious ways right now. I just don't know. And that's all I have to say. I'm going to leave it up to everyone else. With all this being said, Oleksandr Usyk vacates titles, Ajit's the winner. What is going to happen? Is Tony Yoka going to pull out a victory against Murat Gassiev for a French fighter, even though we haven't had one since, and even though, well, Carpentier came on a good show against Jack Dempsey in 1922 or 23, for a heavyweight champion, and it's been over 100 years since a Frenchman fought for a big fight like that. So again, there might be possibilities here. So I just think we should wait and see what happens. And that's all I have to say about this. So anyway, that's all I had to say. Anyway, with all that being said, so thank you, viewers, for watching this episode. And so with that being said, I would like to take the time, with only a couple minutes left of this episode, let's take the time of understanding what will happen in pro boxing. There's going to be new stars in boxing. We're not going to see the same fighters every year. And with Usyk, I think it's an okay thing to go forward. And even though Oscar Collazo has already called out Ricardo Sandoval, who is 2 weight classes over to him on the flyweight, but again, with all that being said, with Pedro Tederan and the South African fighter taking on with believing they want to have an undisputed championship fight with Oscar Collazo, I would say go for it. And with all these other champions, Oscar Collazo can outbox out these champions from the light flyweight and the flyweight, and he can score out big money. And you also have Jesse Rodriguez, who has his opponent believe that he can have the opportunity to win another fight, take on Inoue, and I would believe next year. And Inoue, he's not in his prime as much because Inoue is 33 years old and he's boxed since 2012. Again, I would like to see him retire. He achieved success, and I think that's the best I could say. With all that being said, from the amazement and the talks with Floyd Mayweather and that whole shenanigans, and Raul Romero has already announced that he's already going to defend his title against, I think, Teofimo Lopez. So, again, what's going to happen? What's going to come in place? What's going to happen on Jake Paul's MVP promotion next time? Well, we're just going to have to find out. But until then, see you guys next time, and we'll see you in the month of July.